Welcome back to CAPS 2025. I'm Glenn Bischoff, Mission Critical Partners Content Specialist, and it's my privilege to introduce to you Darrin Reilly, MCP's President and CEO, who will be sharing with us some of his insights about what's going on in the public sector and how things are evolving. And Darrin, thanks so much for carving out some time for us today.
Great to be here. It's an exciting session. Hopefully everyone's enjoying what they're hearing.
So before I get into the topic questions, and I have a slew of them to ask Darrin, I will let the audience know that they can ask Darrin questions during this session by using the Q&A function that you find on your screen. Just type in your question and Darrin will get to as many of them as possible before we conclude. If your questions are unanswered, you will receive an email response sometime in the near future. So with that housekeeping out of the way, Darrin, let's just jump right into the topic questions. The first is this. What developments since the last CAPS are having the biggest impact on public sector organizations and their stakeholders?
Well, probably wouldn't surprise anyone. One of the biggest developments, as far as just more of acceleration on something that was briefly talked about last year as well, is artificial intelligence. Kind of when you look at the last 12 months, that definitely has sucked a lot of oxygen, not in a negative way, taken a lot of time, whatever term you want to use, relative to how the public sector can take advantage of artificial intelligence related tools and processes. So I, kind of stop there. That definitely has been one of the things that is, growing literally daily, without a doubt.
Well, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that later in this session, but in the meantime, are there any other developments that are front and center in your mind?
Yeah, there's a number of things as far as, movement, modernization, movement to the cloud, legacy technology debt is becoming more exposure-related elements, both on the judicial side and the command and control side. That's not going away. It's clearly a development. Another development that is just becoming, more of an issue for our clients is staffing-related challenges, succession planning or lack thereof. Faster retirement rates. Definitely since the last time we had the Conference for Advancing Public Sector, a huge development has been the change in administration at the federal level and its impact down to the public sectors, definitely public safety and what it means, meaning available grants, yes, no, maybe. Available resources, yes, no, maybe. So what are the state and local entities doing to better understand on the impact from a policy standpoint, funding standpoint, with the change in administration? So maybe I would even go back and say that was probably one of the biggest developments since the last CAPS program. I don't know if it would be ahead of artificial intelligence or alongside, and it's something that we're helping our clients, guide them through that.
What are some of the boots on the ground impacts of those obstacles that you just talked about in terms of funding and the federal what's going on at the federal level?
Well, that's a good question. It's in some of our clients aren't quite sure as well. I just was in a central U.S. major client of ours at a state level, and they're in what they would call is kind of the year of transition. And the year of transition is determining, in the case of emergency support, that typically, obviously, in prior years would be coming from FEMA. In regards to be it funding or resources in time of need, right? When you look at, hurricanes, wildfires, ice storms, whatever kind of, flooding, et cetera, happens, which it's not a matter of, if it will happen, when it will happen. It happens, continually. All right. What level of support can they expect to get from the federal government? Again, yes, no, maybe. Right, funding, resources, et cetera, and getting a really clear understanding of that so they know what they have to take on. Again, funding, resources, et cetera, to best prepare at the state and local level in preparation for, events that they know obviously will happen. And it's interesting because when I was meeting with an individual just within the last 30 days who was with a major state agency within the Department of Public Safety that had responsibility for or has responsibility for emergency management as well, she highlighted that really it is kind of that year of transition where everyone's just kind of trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of moving parts. So that's where, we can assist them and are assisting them on, okay, what, kind of the known and unknown, right? If you know this, what are the unknown things, right? And how do you mitigate the unknown so the risk isn't higher? They were fairly positive relative to funding still availability, but it's really taking on a greater degree of the responsibility at the state and local level, where some of the responsibility, maybe talent assistance, or it could be from a funding standpoint, was at the federal level, and now they have to take that on. And definitely FEMA is one of it. The other one that I would end on this is CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Administration. They're both under DHS, and that actually has gone through a fair amount of transformation and impact change as a result of this new administration. CISA, prior to this current administration, was really aggressively communicating the availability of resources, funding, et cetera, for help on cyber-related elements. And now at the state and local level, they're definitely coming to the realization that that responsibility is definitely on them at the state and local level.
So how can some of these challenges be overcome? In other words, what are some of the bridge strategies or tactics that public sector organizations, whether it's public safety or justice, what are they doing to make sure that they can fulfill their missions while they're, as you said, figuring it out?
Well, it's interesting. I would put it in two buckets. The one bucket where people understand, their current reality versus what the reality was in the past, right? Because how do they plan for it? So the organizations that I have an incredible amount of admiration is just recognizing that reality, and most importantly, taking the first step. Not trying to boil the ocean, just recognizing that things have changed, and this is today's reality, and we have to plan for every mission every single day, today's missions as well as what they anticipate moving forward. And the first step really is putting together a roadmap. What do we, again, the knowns and the unknowns, and making sure you're mitigating the downside effects to the unknowns, and making sure by mitigating that it has lesser impact in a negative way to the citizens and the communities that they serve. The other bucket is in, with all due respect, some individuals in certain agencies and departments that, it just seems sometimes that they're just kind of spinning, and they're not, a lot of the talk is about what was versus what is. And then maybe they're thinking, well, we got to put this grandiose, massive strategy, kind of like how to boil the ocean, when they don't really have to do that, because then it becomes just this massive project. It becomes overwhelming. And really, everyone just kind of gets paralyzed, and kind of analysis paralysis, and what should we do? So, I'm a huge believer is the first step is the best step. And maybe you don't know what that second step's going to be, but take that first step and move, lean into it. And that's where certain departments and agencies that have an incredible admiration are doing that, whereas other ones are just kind of slow to take that first step, which at the end of the day, no one benefits in that, because then there's negative exposure to not having the right plan in place.
So how can MCP help them navigate all this?
Oh, well, and twofold. I mean, when we look at our services portfolio, both on the consulting advisory side and the managed services side, everything on the command and control side, as far as requests for service, responding to emergency service requests, and then obviously recording that, we have experts along that entire, workflow, so to speak. And then both on, also on the judicial side, if you think about an incident, ultimately is going to create an incident report. It's just a matter of how many people were impacted by it and how much, property impact, things along those lines. It's going to have to go through the court system. What are the penalties? What is the, people that might have to get incarcerated, and that, kind of that entire workflow all the way through, kind of a case cleared. So we have both on the consulting where we help our clients, assess what they have, kind of what is and what else is in the market, help them go through putting together specifications very often on a procurement relative to modernized related technology and services, and then helping with the implementation side, really kind of in that consulting advisory, sort of speak, bucket. And then on the managed services, we're seeing incredible amount of growth, really helping them with, the cybersecurity related assessments and pen testing and training and, the whole putting together and crafting the governance risk compliance, also helping them with the artificial intelligence related roadmaps and what they should use, helping them with, it could be cyber monitoring related services, technology augmenting services. And I think based upon what I mentioned before, where there's, staffing related challenges that our clients are having at an accelerated rate, staff augmentation and more specifically public-private partnership is something that we're seeing growing, where we're augmenting existing IT related services within our customers' environments or administrators within our customers' environments, and or in certain situations taking over, complete tasks on behalf of our clients and working for them as well.
Okay, so we've been talking about challenges. Let's shift now to opportunities. And before I get to the next topic question, I want to remind the audience again that you can ask Darrin questions throughout this session. Simply use the Q&A function found on your screen, and he will answer as many as time permits. And if we can't get to your question, you will receive a reply via email in the near future. Okay, so Darrin, opportunities. What are the most important opportunities that public sector organizations can take advantage of right now? And let's again put a pin in artificial intelligence, because we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But what else is going on out there?
God, what can I say if I can't talk about artificial intelligence right now? No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Uh, One of the biggest opportunities is leveraging, how best to leverage, cloud-based technology, because there's a lot of technology debt out there. That actually enables our clients to solve a lot of issues that they have relative to technology debt that they have to get beyond. Cloud actually enables them to do that. It actually enables them to leverage the processing power of large cloud providers so they don't have to bear that burden within their own organization, as well as there's some inherent additional security related elements on going to the cloud as well. So again, it lessens the burden at the local level, state and local level, that they don't have to do that. So that's a tremendous opportunity. And then the other opportunity, which I'd mentioned before, is to leverage within your ecosystem, again, public-private partnerships, where maybe your talent pool is a combination of employed FTEs, full-time equivalents within the client's environments, augmented with individuals outside of the organization, but dedicated to the task at hand for the clients to fulfill every mission that they have to do. So that's a great, unbelievable opportunities that are out there now. I'd say more so than ever in the market. I've been in this market for close to 40 years, is probably as difficult as that is to say and or to hear, depending on what side you're on. But it's something that it's a tremendous opportunity right now that our clients can leverage more so than ever before.
Yeah, I think whenever we hear about the cloud, we hear words like redundancy and resiliency. But one word that isn't used enough, I think, is scalability, right? One of the things that the cloud has as an advantage is that it's very, very scalable. And so it's really an opportunity that any agency, regardless of their size, can leverage.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, it could be always available to be able to scale up. It could be ad hoc based upon events. So the flexibility that can be baked into it is tremendous. And again, as I mentioned before, it's more so than ever before. When everything was premise-based, our clients did not have that level of flexibility, and there would be certain situations where it would negatively impact their computing capability based upon the inability to scale up. So it's a great asset, leverage, and capability that our clients should definitely take advantage of.
There was a time when public sector organizations were somewhat reticent regarding the cloud, but I'm thinking that that has changed dramatically in the last few years. Are you finding that to be the case? That they're
Oh,
more enthusiastic about moving solutions and technologies into the cloud?
100%. I mean, it's essentially a platform that has been highly proven in very high robust environments, as well as when you look at a number of the cloud providers have successfully gone through CJIS related requirements and certification to be able to provide the type of added security that's needed within these mission critical solutions that they support, which wasn't the case in the past. As you obviously know, it was more kind of enterprise class related solutions that they supported, retail establishments, transportation, financial services, and things along those lines. But obviously, with the government, there's a heightened awareness of privacy and security, redundancy, resiliency. So most of the cloud providers clearly have, what they call gov cloud instances that take it to a whole nother level. And again, that just wasn't the case years back. And it actually provides the application providers an incredible amount of um, stability and predictability relative to the platforms that they're going to be writing to as well. So that enables them to launch more sophisticated solution sets in the marketplace at a faster rate as well. So there's just an incredible amount of advantages to it.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question, which is since the last caps, what MCP-led client projects have moved the needle furthest in terms of improving public safety and justice outcomes? What comes to mind?
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably the easiest one for me to think about since the last one, and we talked about it very, very briefly because it was kind of fresh out of the gate, and that was the automated secure alarm protocol service platform that we were contracted to do on behalf of the alarm industry, specifically the Monitoring Association, but it was really the alarm industry, TMA. The Monitoring Association supports roughly a $30 billion alarm industry. And everyone on the public safety side is fairly familiar with, NINA and/or APCO and things along those lines, but they're not as familiar with the Monitoring Association. But a number of years ago, they developed this service platform in conjunction with public safety in the case of APCO to provide a digital connection between the monitoring centers and the emergency communication centers, the ECCs. So they, after a number of years, determined they wanted to do a couple things. They wanted to accelerate the deployment of this digital connection between monitoring centers and the ECCs for faster response, a digital connection that would create a bidirectional connection between the ECCs and the monitoring centers based upon sensor-based alarms in commercial properties as well as residentials. Um, and they also wanted to move to an AWS GovCloud instance that enabled additional flexibility to get into essentially any state throughout the United States, where the legacy system obviously was hosted clearly by NLETs for those the individuals that are aware of that, and was roughly in live for 23 states plus DC. But now with the AWS GovCloud that we just dropped literally 30-ish days ago in the September, early October timeframe, it gives a direct connection from that message broker directly into those agencies. So you don't have, you have far less complexity because you don't have a state message switch that's involved in all the kind of complexities inherent to that. So that 100% is something that, serves any client out there on behalf of the Monitoring Association. And it's their platform, not MCP's. We're simply the service provider for that. So it is an honor to be able to support a platform owned and operated. We operate it for them on their behalf under MSA. And it's exciting in the sense that it's not only this kind of this new option where it enables them to go to various types of agencies and departments and flexibility that they didn't have before in any state within the United States, et cetera. But it also is enhancing that protocol as well, where they're going to be able to start doing, alarm validation scoring, AVSO1, which is a standard built upon that, which actually now enables them to, leverage AI and video that enables them to score the level of severity on the alarm at the monitoring center and pass that along to the ECCs. So a score of 4, as an example, is a confirmed threat for life. A score of 3 is a confirmed threat to property. So it's not like, these alarms are coming in as they have been in the past, where there wasn't a validation of a known, kind of what is going on relative to the situation. That is transformational as far as, connecting directly into ultimately the incident queue for computer-aided dispatch. So it's just a game changer, without a doubt, is the number one thing. On the courts and judicial side, again, you keep on saying don't talk about AI yet, but I'm going to sneak this in as well. It's like, we have done a lot on AI relative to policies and procedures and how to help our clients do that. But also, we've created tools that our clients are able to look at, like disposition records, that the system, as it goes through the system, that they can kind of on the case, and what's the ultimate disposition coming out of the courts, and matching that into the computerized criminal history system, and to be able to marry those two elements together in an automated way, leveraging AI, is tremendous. It's tremendous for the clients to drain their backlog on matching those disposition records back to CCH, computerized criminal history records. And we've gained a lot of contracts on that alone in the last 12 months. And something this time last year, we were like, hey, this is something that the market needs. So I would just use those two examples, one on, obviously alarm monitoring, the other one on, leveraging AI in the judicial side of the house.
And when those case dispositions are missing, a lot of things can go wrong fast, right? So, background checks can go awry, and people get hired for positions that are where they're dealing with sensitive populations when they really shouldn't be hired based on their history. And sometimes when those criminal history repositories are not complete, they can miss out on opportunities, right? A lot of bad things can happen when that data is missing.
100%. I mean, to summarize, there's nothing really good that can happen when those dispositions are out of sync.
Right.
They really should be synchronized. And as much as people say, but if you think about going down the workflow, there's an arrest record, obviously, and then they go through the courts, and there's a disposition affiliated with that on the backside. And in a perfect world, well, there would never be this disconnect, right? Well, guess what? It's in two different databases, and very often there is. It's not so much there's actually disconnect, it's just bringing them together through the use of technology to make sure it does a full loop, right? And it's critical. And when there is a disconnect, a lot of negative things can happen to an individual, or to a community and society as a whole.
Thinking about AI from the public safety side of the business, it's still in a very nascent stage, as it is on the justice side, but already some things are happening, right? AI is being used to handle non-emergency calls, for instance. Give me a few examples, if you could, of how AI on the public safety side is moving the needle already.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of, chat bots that are handling non-emergency calls that offloads what's coming in through the admin line, that takes a 911 call taker away from a 911 call to answer the admin line, which could be obviously non-emergency line. And if you could do that through an AI chatbot, so to speak, that's great. Dispatcher quality assurance and training via AI and AI coaching can really help accelerate the skills for the talent that you need for the position. It's all about a race for talent. So if you can get people through and trained at a faster rate, all the better, right? Because most likely a lot of these centers and or people within the courts, they're not staffed at full budget as a whole. I mean, if you look at a lot of ECCs, they're staffed at 75%, maybe 80%. Some are like even lower than that, right? So if you can get people, hired and trained and then, go through retaining tools, that's great. Language translation is kind of a no-brainer. Multilingual AI triage is a key element that really they can leverage AI for that as well. So there's just an array of capabilities via AI that assist the organizations as a whole.
I want to circle back just briefly to ASAP service again and talk about something that we didn't really talk about, which is, you know, some centers across the country get tens of thousands of these alarm notifications, and if ASAP service isn't in place, what has to happen is there have to be multiple calls between the 911 center and the alarm monitoring center for the telecommunicator to get the information they need to make a well-informed response decision, right? And as I understand it, some of those interactions of that back and forth, if you will, can take up to 6 to 8 minutes, which is an eternity in an emergency situation. Now, with ASAP service in place, there is no more back and forth. The information needed by the telecommunicator goes directly, automatically, and digitally into the CAD system, and that saves, I think, on average 2 minutes or so, which is a significant amount of time when lives are at stake. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I've been in the industry for close to 40 years, and you look at what this tool is able to provide, and it's really coming at the perfect time. There's a number of entities that have taken advantage of it. There's over 1 million transactions going through the platform already. There's definitely a goal to get that way into the tens plus millions, well over 10 million transactions within the next few years. But it really creates an incredible amount of efficiency and sharing of information. At the end of the day, at the very, very heart of it is it's a CAD to CAD interlink, right, between the computer-aided dispatch at the ECC level and what they call automation tools in the alarm industry. And just, for the people on the public safety side, just view it as a CAD at the alarm industry, right? And to be able to share that information digitally in kind of a live stream. Think about if you're a citizen and you get a call and you're aware and you've been notified, and they would be notified that their house is on fire, they're in another location or whatnot. They want to know, all right, has it been dispatched yet? Have they arrived yet? What is going on? And all that, I'd be able to openly communicate that through this ANSI-based standard that was put together by the industry, alarm industry, with the public safety industry, APCO, right? It's incredible, right? Without, requiring phone calls going back and forth for the initial call, and then follow-up calls like, oh, what's the key code to get into the address? Things along those lines. Because usually every alarm, will create multiple calls just for that single alarm, especially on, high emergency related element. Think of a panic alarm, think of a fire alarm or a threat for life related issue that's going on. So, I mean, to have a digital connection that actually reduces the response time, provides an incredible open door to the sharing of information between the automated systems that are running the monitoring centers, their CAD, so to speak, and the automated systems that are, managing the resources that are responding to the request for service, CAD, right? And to be able to have that coming back and forth, and kind of the punchline too is we're talking about there's no toll service, so to speak, between the monitoring centers and the ECC, meaning there's no charge for the service. I mean, stop and think about that, right? It's, for the benefit of both sides of the equation, the monitoring centers into the ECCs. Now, there's a setup fee, within the ECCs, and there might be a license fee, typically is within the computer dispatch applications on the ECC side of the house. But as far as that ongoing service and that connection, it's simply going through the internet. So there's not a charge going from the monitoring, from the alarm industry, alarm company too. And the alarm industry has all harmonized on it. 80% of all the alarm companies are harmonized on this protocol, just like all the CCH vendors, the computerized, telephony providers within the 911 industry have harmonized on I3, right? I mean, that is the standard. Same with the alarm industry has harmonized on this ANSI-based alarm protocol service platform. So it's just a tremendous benefit. And it offloads an incredible amount of work, effort, and energy at the ECC to free up those resources to answer the other 911 calls that come in through that line. So it's such a force multiplier, and we're seeing an incredible amount of uptick during the past 12 months. And now that we have this new platform out, it's just going to take it a whole different level.
And that can't be overstated, the ability for telecommunicators to get to actual 911 emergency calls faster and not having to deal with the alarm notification because it's all happening automatically. And I also think it's important to stress that this is standards based, and then I think it's good to revisit very quickly the whole AWS GovCloud aspect of this, right? It's never been easier or faster to implement ASAP service, and by the way, for those who are wondering, ASAP stands for the Automated Secure Alarm Protocol, which was developed by TMA with the help of the public safety sector. So that AWS GovCloud, it's secure, and it couldn't be easier to get involved.
Yeah, 100%. And there's obviously you heard a couple presentations that went in a great level of detail during the last couple days, and we welcome, and our team that is working every day on behalf of TMA for this service platform, is willing to help all our clients to be able to figure out how can we get this up and running at a faster rate. And it really, it's interesting you said something, and it's true, but there's something I want to, build upon that is like, yes, it enables the 911 telecommunicator to get off of the admin line and answer the next 911 call. So it is the response time for the 911 calls and reduces the response time on alarm initiated calls because it goes right into the CAD. But also, given the fact that it's automated, in case of alarms, well, maybe they don't have another 911 call, and they just have the capability to take a breath instead of jumping 911 calls the admin line, 911 calls the admin line. Well, if the admin line is now automated, as it should be, right, for the benefit of all, and maybe there isn't another 911 call, well, maybe they can just take a kind of a mental health break, right? So again, just kind of that pace of flow, is I think should not be overlooked. And one of the 911 directors that I've known for over 20 years that's put this in 3 different centers within the state of Tennessee, in 3 different centers there, stated that he's like, it's just one of those things that, to be able to give the call taker the ability to simply just take a kind of mental health break, right, is incredible. And that shouldn't be overlooked either.
Given the stresses and the rigors of the job, it absolutely is incredible.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have a couple more topic questions to get to, but before we do, I would one more time like to remind the audience that you can ask Darrin questions during this session using the Q&A function found on your screen. Once again, he'll get to as many questions as he can before we end. And if you don't get an answer to your question, you will receive one via email in the near future. So, Darrin, next to last question, what is your vision for mission critical partners, both short-term and long-term?
Well, the vision is to be able to really help our clients as they go through this transformation, which it is a pretty significant transformation arc. It's not something that they can't all achieve. I think it's going to be kind of take a village type thing, where you would have cloud providers that would be part of the equation, obviously, application providers, clearly part of the equation. Companies like us that could be providing staff augmentation and consulting related services. Companies like us that could be providing cybersecurity related assessments and pen testing to make sure that their organizations are, properly secured and protected, because that's definitely an added threat that's not going to go away anytime soon. So when I look at that, I think it's for us is really just help our clients, and the vision is through all these related services as they go through this, kind of getting out of this deep canyon of technology debt and get to modern related technology that enables them to continue to serve and protect the citizens that they obviously serve every single day, both within the courts and obviously with the first responders and the command and control systems that enable them to serve and provide safety and security services. So it's really an exciting time for us to be able to assist our clients, and we're actually working a lot closer with them because of the challenges that they have. That I don't think it's going to change anytime soon relative to staffing and things along those lines. It really will be, and I look forward, very active public-private partnerships that enable us to provide these highly comprehensive systems for the communities where we work, live, and play.
All right, so I guess we're just about at the end of our time together. I have one more question to ask you, and it's always my favorite interview question, and that is, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me awake at night? It's kind of interesting. I was thinking about that. Probably just the speed of adoption. One of the things that keeps me awake at night is there's been a fair amount of dialogue, rightfully so to an extent. But again, being in this business for almost 40 years, people talk about budget this, budget that. Do we have the grant funds? Do we not? Right? That's always been there, right? And I'm a huge believer when there's a will, there's a way. And I know it's balancing related projects and priorities at the state and local level. But very often, some people are looking at, hey, do we have the budget to be able to do kind of this grandiose, big plan, right? But they have no existing strategy. Even if they had the budget, how would they do that, right? So again, back to, I always say the first step's the best step, right? And it's a necessary item is like, what is the roadmap? What is the strategy? Who knows if you're going to be able to have the budget, but if you don't have a really comprehensive strategy on, what is, the top 3 or 4 things that you need to get done within the next, 1 to 3 years, as an example, you got to really be able to have a comprehensive plan to be able to do that, a strategy. And it doesn't have to be this, novel size, binder, 5-inch binder that's your, overall strategy to be able to do that. It can be something a lot more comprehensive and brief, but it starts aligning all the people to be able to do that. So probably what keeps me awake at night is probably a lot of the entities and agencies that don't have that, candidly. And probably the second item as well is, and it's just going to be accelerating, is the cybersecurity related side of it. I just think there's a level of passiveness in the marketplace, and that is definitely something that I'm hopeful people start paying far more attention to. Right? There has been some progress, but not nearly as much as what I think is definitely needed in the marketplace.
Well, and we touched upon that in an earlier session, the governance, risk, and compliance session, which is it's cybersecurity is an element of that, but it's a much more holistic approach to mitigating risk.
Right, without a doubt, and it's just something that is just overall IT hygiene, right? And it has to be what everyone should be thinking about every single day to be able to have making sure that if things happen, because it will. There's no way that a plan can be put together that says, hey, we will never be exposed in any way, shape, or form to a bad actor, a cyber intrusion. It will happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And to be able to have a comprehensive plan on, how can we mitigate the downsides effect of when it happens, that is success. And if you can mitigate it in whole this year, all the better, right? Well, what happens next year? Things change. You have people come in and they're maintaining your systems. You have employees that are there today that won't be there in the future. You have vendors that are there today that may not be there in the future. And there's very sophisticated bad actors out there that are trying to penetrate these critical systems that obviously enable society to move forward. So it's really putting together a plan to how do you mitigate the downsides effect? What is your remediation related strategies, and how can you have it as less disruptive as possible?
I want to touch base once more on the whole concept of the shiny object phenomenon, right? A lot of organizations, fall victim to that. The new cool thing comes out, and everybody wants, jump on board. And I'm thinking about this in the context of artificial intelligence. I mean, a couple of years ago, nobody in the public sector was really talking about it all that much, and now just about the only thing that anybody's talking about. And there's a risk there. One of our colleagues wrote recently, and it really resonated with me, that artificial intelligence has to be applied intelligently, right? So in other words, you have to have, it's a great tool, right? One metaphor that I think of is it's a difference. You can fix your car with a crescent wrench, but why wouldn't you use a socket set, right? And AI is the socket set in this regard. But you can't use a socket set for everything, right? You have to have an idea of what's the best use for the socket set. And I think that applies to AI. Give me a few thoughts about that. How do organizations go about, avoiding jumping in with both feet without knowing what's lurking below, beneath the waters?
Yeah, it's really the application and how it's going to be used. I would probably draw a correlation to aircraft. Commercial aircraft has had autopilot for years, where it could take off, land itself. But I don't know too many people from a payload standpoint would want to get into an aircraft, a commercial aircraft, without seeing pilots in the cockpit. So because they know that they have autopilot, but they also have actual intelligence with trained individuals that can take over and make sure that they're monitoring things and everything's working as expected. Having said that, other aircraft, if you look at a lot of the campaigns that are taking place in various parts of the world, it's via drones. There's no pilot. The payload is a different type of payload.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, that application of that aircraft to deliver that mission on a drone, let's say in a war zone area, or if a drone, it doesn't even have to be a war zone, to take photos of, for real estate or whatever it is, right? The payload is different, right? And the application is far different. So, those are, and you're seeing a lot of drones now, even in public safety, where, there's an incident, they sent the drone out and they're getting that situation awareness back into the ECC faster. Isn't that great? That's fantastic, because it's now providing kind of those video images and the imagery to help for better response, right? But artificial intelligence, I think, will follow that same path, right? When you look at AI, is going to be embedded in pretty much everything that we do, but it's not going to take away the need of actual intelligence. That's AI as well, right? The individual that's trained to do the task at hand. So it's an exciting time. It's almost like that the internet, when it started becoming far more pervasive, in the 80s, right? Where people are like, God, is the internet going to take over everything? And now it's like people can't imagine not leveraging the benefits of having an internet connection anytime, right? In the palm of their hand, clearly, obviously, right? And AI is just going to be that embedded tool too, that's just really going to take it to a next level. I mean, you think about autonomous driving as an example, right? As definitely taking a full advantage of broadband related technologies, AI, et cetera. And ultimately, autonomous driving is going to save literally thousands of lives on an annual basis. Lives that are impacted by, guess what? Manual driving, right? People that are actually driving themselves, right? So yeah, it's something that our industry, public sector, is going to have to approach, and there's going to be a lot of benefits. But I think it gets back to, what is a roadmap? What's the strategy? What best policy and procedures and planning that they can use that's going to provide the best return for them, versus chasing shiny new objects, because there could be downside effects of rolling out certain solution sets that could impact a lot of people.
Okay, very good. So unfortunately, we have now reached the end of our time together. I want to thank Darrin Reilly, MCP's president and CEO, for carving out time today to share his insights with us. I want to thank all of our attendees for tuning in, and we're already looking forward to 2026 and the next CAPS. Until then, take care.
Thank you.